The running back position had a resurgence this year. And now, with NFL teams reevaluating how important that position is, guess what? This might be the most loaded running back class in the last decade. So, today we're going to rank our top 10 running backs. But if you stay to the end, I'll give you my top 25 as well as their draft grades. Should be tons of fun. Let me know your favorite in the comments. But let's get into it. Just cracking the top 10 is a fan favorite for me, at least. He's one of the most enjoyable running backs that I got to watch on tape over the last few weeks. That is Kyle Monangai. This is a guy, and I just like the style of running back where they're physical, they're north-south runners, and they're built low. They play lower. Kyle Monangai does all of those things for Rutgers at 5'9", 210. I think he has one of the highest floors because of his pass pro ability, but also because he's just that dynamic as a runner. Now, I will say he's not really a receiving back, but if you get a guy, he's going to be an early down back. He'll be your first and second down guy. Then you bring in your third down receiving back. But Kyle Monangai, I like him because he's a very safe pick, and I think a team on day 3 is going to get a steal of a player because he just plays that good. At number 9 is Dylan Sampson, and the first thing I want to point out is his production. Over 280 touches, so he's used to a 3-down workload. 1.5 thousand total yards and 22 rushing touchdowns. First team All SEC. He is a one-cut explosive running back, and we like to see that at the NFL level because you're not going to have, most of the time, unless you're Le'Veon Bell, you're not going to be able to be that patient in the backfield. Usually, your window of getting a big play is this big, so you got to be able to capitalize. Be a one-cut back, get to that hole, and of course, explode out of it. Now, for Dylan Sampson at 5'11", 200, good size. I will say he's a little bit light, but I think he's going to come in right maybe around 210, 215 at the combine. I want to see how that impacts his 40 time and all that good stuff. But outside of being a below average pass pro running back and the fact that he doesn't have a lot of experience in a pro style offense. Of course, we know Tennessee, it plays a very veer and shoot spread out offense. This is a guy that I think that he does have deceptive speed. And if he can come in a little bit heavier, I think a team's going to take a shot on him and he can be a 3-down back down the line. And number 8 is DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. I don't know. I kind of just like Kansas State. Maybe it's just because their colors. I don't know. Right. But this is a guy that, again, his production was off the charts. 225 total touches, 1.6 thousand yards, and 8 touchdowns. Second team all Big 12. I think he's a very patient runner. I think he's deceptively shifty there in the backfield. Now, the things that are on the con side of him is that he doesn't have the most reliable hands. He had a lot of focus drops, just like a couple other guys on this list. And this is a guy that does run a little bit high. He doesn't have that built low, play low kind of style of running back, which kind of goes back to my earlier point. So maybe he should be lower on my list, but I think he does. I think he has a safe floor, and I think he has a very high ceiling. But it's all a matter of when the team he goes to, can they use him the right way? Now, this might ruffle some feathers, but Quinshon Judkins for me is a little bit lower. He's at number 6, but this is such a loaded running back class that should tell you that you can grab any of these top 6 guys and rely on them to be a 3-down workhorse kind of a running back at the next level. But Quinshon, he runs low, plays lower, even at 6 foot, maybe even 6'1". So it's very impressive that he gets low and he's still very explosive, continues to always move his feet. I think he is very patient. I think he's explosive, as we saw there in the college football playoff. He just brings a lot of versatility, and you want to see that at the next level. We know Derrick Henry isn't necessarily a versatile back as far as his receiving work, but he's gotten better in that aspect of his game throughout his career. So you don't necessarily need to be so like all around good, but it's definitely a plus, right? It's something that you want to see out of a 3-down back. But for Quinshon, just given his ability alone, this is a guy that's going to be a day 2 pick, whether if it's round 2 or round 3. And I think a team's going to grab him, and they're going to be very happy with his production. I'm just curious to see what team he's going to end up on because, again, he has the potential to be the best back in the class. Now, his teammate at number 5 is TreVeyon Henderson, and they can honestly be on the same tier. I think I had Quinshon as 51 on my top 50 and TreVeyon at 50. So, again, they're very close. But TreVeyon at 5'10", 210, a little bit light, but again, he's a little bit shorter as well. He's very explosive. I think this year we got to see back to his potential that we saw in his freshman year. This year, I think this year kind of solidified the fact that he's not a three down back. I think you want to grab him and you don't want to use him like a Quidshawn. You don't want to use him like some running backs ahead of him. You want to use them as like a 50-50 split, kind of like what Detroit does with their two-star running backs. That's how you kind of want to use TreVeyon Henderson. But still, even in a split workload, over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns, which is not bad at all. I will say his receiving game is not necessarily on the higher end of this draft class, but he's still a very polished running back, and I think any team that grab him, they're going to be able to plug and play him on day one. Cam Skattebo, he is a coach's favorite player for obvious reasons. He is built low to the ground, plays low. He plays with his heart on his sleeve. And of course, you can list off all the adjectives that these guys are going to say about Cam Skattebo because, well, he looks a certain way. But his production is unlike any other. Over 2,200 yards and 24 touchdowns. He was fifth in the Heisman voting this previous year. I think he has the production of a first-round running back, but I think he has the skill set, maybe like the athletic tools of like a day three player. But just for the simple fact that this guy just runs through you, he's going to leave his heart out on the field every single snap, let alone game. That it's going to entice some of these teams to take him maybe late round one, as crazy as that sounds, or sometime in day two. But 103 forced missed tackles. I understand the NFL is a different level, and I understand that these guys at the NFL level aren't going to miss as many tackles as collegiate players. But 103 forced missed tackles at a guy that's not necessarily shifty, it's insane. He runs through you. He's just stronger than you, and you can use him in a variety of ways. He is going to be a special talent. I'm curious to see where he goes. Now, moving into the top three, I think all these guys have the potential to be top 5 level running backs in the league. And I'm serious. At some point in their careers, I think they could be on the elite level of running back. But this is a guy, Nick Singleton. He's not as polished as maybe TreVeyon, Quidshawn, or even Cam Skattebo. But still, I do think athletically, he brings the complete package. His size at 6'1", 225. His strength off the charts, right? He's a freak. And then he has the speed to go along with it. He has this violent running style to him where he can run by you, but he can also run through you. And again, that's the kind of things that you like to see out of a running back. He's not scared of contact, which is why I believe he has the most upside in the class, potentially. Of course, when we talk about some guys ahead of him, I can understand the argument either way. But his forced missed tackle rate is just not great. And it's not comparable to Skattebo or a lot of the other running backs on this list. And his hands, a lot of focus drops. So maybe this is a guy that is just an early down back to start his career, and then he develops his hands, and then he's used it in that way, later on in his career. But as of right now, the athletic tools are there for Nick Singleton to come into a team day one and be a 3-down back and to be a top 10 running back at some point in his career. I misspoke earlier, but now we're into the top 3. Caleb Johnson is an absolute tank. His production was also off the charts, and we'll come back to that in just a second. At 6 foot 220, the size is there. This is a guy that does have great speed, acceleration. He forces a ton of missed tackles, and he was first team Big Ten. So again, that's another tip to his cap. But 260 total touches, 1,700 total yards, and 23 touchdowns. Now you might say, oh, and okay, oh yeah, he had great numbers, but he was running behind an offensive line where he wasn't touched for the first 5 yards. And that's a very good point. Iowa has always had crazy offensive lines. A guy like Connor Colby is coming out this year, and he's underrated. But look, at the end of the day, Caleb Johnson did what he was supposed to do, right? He still showed elite explosiveness and vision on some of these, or throughout the majority of the season. And this is a guy that, even though he was behind a great offensive line, he produced at an elite level. And I think with his tools and his production, a team's going to take a shot on him early day 2. And I think, again, he has the potential to be a top 5 running back in the league at some point, and a 3-down back. Now, if you want to talk about running backs that have the legit potential to go round number 1, we're talking about these next 2 guys. Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina, 6'1", 220, first team All ACC last year. This is a guy where I understand, look, he had to come out this year, right? But I actually am now curious to see what he would have looked like in a Bill Belichick-led offense. Again, that's the 2 timelines don't match up. But Omarion Hampton, his production was off the charts. 320 total touches with over 2,000 yards and 17 touchdowns. I'd say that's pretty good, right? There's a reason why he was first team All ACC. He has great size. I think he has a great power to his running style, right, which is very violent. I think he has good contact balance, maybe great contact balance. Where a guy that you need to probably like the first tackler's usually not going to tackle Omarion Hampton, and and even if you do stop him in the run game, guess what? I think he has very underrated hands. The outside of that, I think he can work on some technical things like his vision. But outside of that, Omarion Hampton has all the tools to maybe be the best running back in the class. And that's saying a lot because we know who's at number one. A top 10 grade for the number one running back. And that is, of course, Ashton Jeanty, the Heisman runner-up, a guy that had a season that nobody expected, probably even his own self, right? But he's just a relentless tank. If I had to sum up Ashton Jeanty in 3 words, I would say a relentless tank. That is perfectly how you describe his running style. But his production was off the charts. 400 total touches, 2,700 yards, and 30 touchdowns. Yes, like Stephen Curry's number, 30 touchdowns. He forced 151 forced missed tackles this past year. He's built low. He plays lower, which of course is my style of running back. I think he has good hands. I think pass pro, he has a lot of power behind him where he's going to be very good in that aspect. I think his potential draft price might be the only con for the fact that history tells us, in the last 20 years, you don't need to draft a running back in the top 10. I think that might be where Ashton Jeanty goes. So that'd be my only con to Ashton Jeanty because history is not on his side, at least over the last 2 decades. But outside of that, there's no worries about Ashton Jeanty's game and production on the field. He's a top 10 grade for me. Now, quickly, just to recap here is my top 10 with their grades out of 100. Of course, like I mentioned last video, nobody has over a 96 or 97, I believe, depending on what Travis Hunter is. So just keep that in mind here. Ashton Jeanty, again, is top 10 for a reason. Outside of that, we have 5 running backs here. I'm sorry, 6 running backs that are in my top 50, and of course 4 of them in the top 50 and 2 of them in the top 25, 1 in the top 10 as you see on your screen. But that is my top 10. Now, if you stay to this point, hey, you get the rest of my top 25. Here is 11 through 20 with Devin Neal at the top and Trevor Etienne. He had a great Senior Bowl weekend. He is in the top 20 there at the bottom. LeQuint Allen, I love his game out of Syracuse. I'm curious to see where he goes day 3. I just like his game. I think he's all around a very, very good running back. Outside of that, yeah, I mean, again, you guys see the list on your screen there. All these guys have the potential, but can that be maximized at the next level? That's my biggest question. Now, here's 21 through 25. Taj Brooks at the top out of Texas Tech. Very good receiving back. If you need one, he might be one of the better in the class. And then at the bottom, Marcus Yarns. I will admit, I got to dive into his film a little bit more. So that's why he's at the bottom. I think he could be higher, right? But at 25 out of Delaware, again, I respect him enough. I had to put him on the list. But again, I'm going to do my due diligence, continue to dive into the film of all of these players going forward. But that's it. That's the running back list. If you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. It's a brand new channel. That's why we only got like 3 subscribers. But hey, help us get to where we want to go. And hey, what is your favorite running back? Let me know down in the comments.